Hey everyone, welcome to another session of A Day in the Life of a BA. I'm James, the president of IIBA Ireland, and I'll be your host today. At IIBA Ireland, our mission is to support professionals by sharing knowledge, common terminology, and practical insights into the work of business analysts across different industries or sectors. This series gives you a chance to hear directly from BA professionals about their typical day, like their processes, the tools and techniques they use, and the challenges and successes that they encounter within their industry. Each month, we're inviting a separate BA professional to share their personal journey, highlighting the approaches they take, the technologies they rely on, and real-world examples from their own work. So whether you're considering a career in business analysis, already working alongside BAs, or simply looking to deepen your understanding of the role, today's session is designed to give you that clarity, confidence, and a shared language for working effectively with BAs. And today, I'm delighted to be joined by Iryna, a business analyst who works in healthcare. Iryna will be walking us through her own day in the life and sharing practical insights from her own experience. Please feel free to turn on your cameras, and throughout the session, you're more than welcome to interact with other attendees in the chat. So please feel free to do so. And don't hesitate to drop your questions into the Q&A tab where we'll address them at the end. So without further ado, Iryna, it's over to you.
Thanks, Jane. Hi, everyone, and thank you for having me here today. It's a real privilege to talk about the topic I'm deeply passionate about. It's about business analysis in the healthcare. And just imagine, what is a small gap in the requirements can lead to a failure of a life-critical medical device at the sidebed. And even in every missed requirement isn't just a business need and business risk, it can cost a life to a person. And let me introduce myself. My name is Iryna Sizikova, and I have 18 years of experience in medical software development. I work at dental software and hardware manufacturer. We release products over 100 market worldwide, so dealing with different regulations. I have master's degree in mechanical engineering and certified PMP and PSPO2. And I'm very close to getting my CBAP certification in business analysis. In this company, I have multiple roles. It's a project manager, product owner, business analyst, and current one is a chapter lead of business analysis and documentation. I'm working on designing and improving R&D processes and defining a role of business analyst in a highly regulated environments. Besides, I am IIBA member, author of a number of scientific publications. I'm presenter, podcast guest, and IIBA award judge. In my private life, I'm a pilot. I fly small Cessna 172, and if needed, yes, I can land a plane. So let's go back to our topic today. And I prepared agenda to explain a role and value of business analysts in the healthcare. Then I will introduce our key stakeholders, which are not normally typical for other industries. Then we will take a look into a regulatory framework. I took as an example two the most common countries. It's US and European Union. And we will have introduction to a quality management system, then post-market obligations, which are normal for regulated industries. And I will show you a case study to describe how we do the risk management and similar topics, cybersecurity risk, on the example of the risk control. And we will leave from 10 to 15 minutes on a Q&A session. Feel free to ask what you are interested in about business analysis in the healthcare. So to start with, what is the value of business analyst in healthcare projects? You probably heard, I heard it multiple times. Why do we need a business analyst? We have a product owner who can cover everything. And that's really challenging. And let's clarify that. So what a business analyst does on our software healthcare projects. So business analyst transforms clinical processes and regulation into a clear software requirements. Also, analysts controls clinical and cybersecurity risks through software requirements, and as well as trace all the requirements from the business need up to the result of the test cases. As well as a business analyst facilitates faster regulatory approval through clear and well-structured documentation. If you maintain and trace all your requirements, so to prepare a documentation for submission to a notified body, it's almost one-click action. Then what could be different from other industries besides your business stakeholders and you're basically a product manager and your Scrum team? You have a number of stakeholders you need to deal on a daily basis. So first of all, it's a regulatory compliance manager, then quality manager, risk manager, cybersecurity manager, usability managers, and some other. But the one listed, I will try to cover in my presentation, how you deal with them. And let's proceed to the regulatory framework. And it's mainly how you deal with regulatory compliance or regulatory affairs manager. What we start with, as soon as we have high-level stakeholder requirements, regulatory affairs or regulatory compliance manager comes into play, and it starts with product qualification. Is it a medical device or not? How do we know if it's a medical device? If our software or product has intended use for any treatment or any medical purposes. So simply saying, then we call it a medical device. And as soon as we qualify that it is a medical device, we need to do some classification. So classification is from class 1 to class 3. It's from less strict to more strict. And let's proceed to the next slide to see how this classification differs between US and Europe. And you will get the idea about other countries, which numbers can be slightly different, but idea is mostly the same. So in the US, we have main regulator, it's the Food and Drug Administration. So the FDA, you might heard about that. And the key regulations, we have, I listed the main regulations which it included. So it's a quality system regulation, we have labeling requirement, we have medical device reporting, and established registration and the device listing. So if we are talking about classification of a medical device, so it's classes in the US 1, 2, and 3 according to FDA. So less strict is class 1, the most strict is class number 3. So class number 1, just an examples for your understanding, it's fitness tracking apps, sleep monitors, some appointment app, so which could in any way do any harm to a patient. So class 2, we have moderate risk. It's blood pressure monitoring app, some glucose monitoring app, or imaging analysis software. So it can do some harm to a patient, but in most cases, it will never lead to a death. And class 3, it's a high risk software or products. And in case something goes wrong or a failure in the software, it can seriously harm a patient or even kill them. And just an example, what we are talking about, it's AI-based cancer detection system, insulin pump control software, and or radiotherapy planning software, which takes decision and immediately starts treatment to a patient. So this is the most dangerous one. And why do we as analysts know these classifications? It's you may ask, it's purely regulatory stuff, but basically not really. Every class lead to FDA approval pathways. Depending on the class, we choose which pathway we select to proceed. The most common one is 510(k) submission. Maybe you heard about that too. It applies to a moderate risk medical devices, and it applies to those devices who has a predicate device on the market, already on the market. And what we do with that, we demonstrate substantial equivalence, and we compare safety and effectiveness compared to a predicate device. So in our company, most of medical devices, we go through this path because we normally have a predicate, and we just, if we develop a new similar software or a feature, we just compare to what is existing on the market and prove that it is safe and more efficient than that. Then the next one is de novo classification. It applies to low to moderate risk devices. And why do we need it? It applies to the innovation. If we have on the market innovative devices without a clear predicates. So it's widely used for AI technologies. So AI is relatively new in medical software, and many products have no predicates. That's why we use de novo classifications. What does it mean for us as an analyst to keep in mind? It's comprehensive documentation proving safety and effectiveness on its own merits. And as soon as we get certified the product, this product becomes a predicate for every next product. So basically the next version of this product will go through 510(k) clearance. Yeah, basically it becomes predicate for future similar devices upon approval. And the most strict one, it's pre-market approval. It's high-risk devices, basically of class 3. And it requires comprehensive clinical studies to demonstrate safety and effectiveness. And we, as a manufacturer, need to implement a rigorous post-market surveillance process. So speaking about European Union, it's a kind of similar but regulated by the MDR, medical device regulation, and it's dated 2017. And the major requirements of that will be device classification, same as qualification and classification, same as in the US. Then conformity assessment. Then we have SE marking. So if you look at any medical device released in the European market, they all have this SE market. It means the product is certified. And we should have established quality management system, then clinical evaluation and evidences as a mandatory post-market surveillance. And all products in the European market has unique device identification. So in the general register where we can find this UDI of a device and check how and when it was certified. About risk-based classification, this is very similar to the US, just we have 4 risk classes, and we have class 1 low, class 2A, 2B, it's medium, less and more strict, and class C, it's high-risk medical devices. So what do we mean with class 1 medical devices? It's again same as in the FDA, administrative or wellness software, and they are not usually regulated and not classified as a medical device. SIMD, it stands for software as a medical device. And class 2A, so it's less strict but already regulated software. And when software does some diagnosis or treatment recommendations, but normally the decision itself goes to a doctor. Doctor can use it as a helper, but not instead of and replacing a doctor of making the diagnosis. So just a recommendation, and it's up to doctor to listen to that or to not. Class B, it's software that diagnoses or treats serious conditions. it's more regulated. And class 3, it's same as in the FDA. It's software which treats or takes decisions for critical patient conditions. And as soon as we did it, similar approach for class A, list regulatory burden, and we do some self-declaration of class A, and normally notified body is not involvement of notified body is not required for this class software. If we are talking about class 2A, 2B, and 3, and the higher the stricter, and we involve the notified body, it's required to proceed with the regulatory clearance for the product. Going to a next section about quality. QMS, if we are not talking about the first category, but for second and third risk class, quality management system is mandatory. Medical device manufacturers are required to pass regulatory audits who check how we established and implemented quality management system and how we comply with some international standards. And I will list them on one of the next slides. So main idea, if it's class 1 devices, not really a QMS required for that, though some basic quality controls are still expected. So international standard regulating QMS and describing QMS, it's ISO 13845, and it's a certification. And after successfully passing the audits, we claim that we comply with this standard and we get a certificate. So this certificate and compliance is required for class 2 and higher devices. So we do implement and maintain QMS, just permanently working in a medical manufacturer company. And talking about international standards, there are a couple of them used like on every project. We start with the QMS, established, it's 13485. Then there is a standard regulating medical software life cycle, it's 62304. Then there is international standards regulating risk management, it's 14971. Then there is a special standard for usability and human factors, where we identify how human errors can cause a system failure and what the consequences it could be. And there is also standards for clinical evaluation and evidence, and some guidance for cybersecurity for the software. So cybersecurity basically is applied in every industry and nothing really special for the medical software. But we are cloud-based. We developed cloud-based platform and all cybersecurity risks are present. A couple of words about post-market applications. This is probably not typical for other industries. As soon as we are highly regulated industry, we are required to do post-market surveillance. And what does it include? It's complaint handling and record keeping. It's mandatory incident reporting. It's then recall and corrective action. We distribute all the records on the request. And we constantly monitor complaints. We do risk reassessment and re-evaluation. Basically, we monitor how product behaves on the market after the release and trends, more complaints, less complaints, and even there are recalls in place and we have to report to this notified body if something serious happens and any harm or even death happen to a patient as a result of a software misbehavior. So quite serious, and there is the whole team working on this post-market surveillance process. And now let's proceed to my favorite topic. It's risk management. This is regulated by ISO 14971. And in a nutshell, let me explain you what risk management process looks like according to this standard. First of all, we start with planning risk management activities. Then we identify hazards, estimate and evaluate risks, have initial risks. Then we introduce risk control measures to mitigate the risks, after which we evaluate the residual risk. And after performing overall risk-benefit analysis, we conclude that the product is safe to go to market. And after the release, we simply monitor production and post-market data. And let's look at the example. I prepared a case study for you, how we do hazard and risk analysis for AI-based ECG. It's electrocardiogram interpretation software. Consider a scenario that CardioCheck analyzes ECG data from external sensors and provides automated interpretation. For example, atrial fibrillation detection to support clinical decision making. So we qualify that our software is a medical device. Then we have to classify it. It's risk class 3, where incorrect results could lead to serious patient harm. And let's see which hazards we identified here. So for the purposes of this presentation, I identified 5 hazards. It's first one, it's algorithm misclassification. So software gives a false negative results. Then we could have hazard number 2, data corruption. Then when input ECG data is partially lost or altered during the transit. Then we have cybersecurity breach. Then unauthorized access to patient data or system manipulation. Another one which relates to usability engineering, it can be user interface confusion. When a clinician simply does not understand how this software works and what they should do with them. And the last one, very common, it's loss of connectivity. When cloud service becomes unavailable during the use, and we try, of course, to restore the connection. After identifying the hazards, what is the next step? We do risk estimation. So for every identified hazard, we assess severity and probability. And multiplying of severity to probability, we got our initial risks. So let's go through our identified hazards and see what it leads to. We have algorithm misclassification, severity high, because misdiagnosis can lead to death. And probability, it's medium, and this initial risk is high. Then when it comes to data corruption, its severity is medium, because it can be delayed diagnosis, but not really kill a patient. And probability is medium, so initial risk is medium. Hazard number 3, it's cybersecurity breach. Severity is high, because it can be changes to our data or data breach, and we violate a law, and consequences could be quite serious, and it's even financial penalties to a company. So probability is quite low, and multiplying high to low, we get a medium initial risk. So hazard number 4, UI confusion. We have medium severity because of wrong clinical action, and medium probability. What is the probability of this risk could happen? And we get, as a result, medium initial risk. And number 5, loss of connectivity. So severity is low, it will just will delay the workflow, and probability, I would say medium. So because the chances you will get loss. The connectivity is quite high, to be honest. And initial risk still assessed is low. What we do as a next step, we define risk control measures. So for every hazard, I identified, and let's go quickly through them. So for algorithm misclassifications, what we can do? We can do validate algorithm on a large data set. We can do real-time quality checks and clinical performance monitoring. So, and we mitigate from initial risk high to residual risk medium. Then for hazard number 2, it's data corruption. We do data integrity checksums, retry mechanisms, and logging and alerts on error. And this way we mitigate initial risk from medium to residual risk low. If we're talking about hazard number 3, it's cybersecurity breach. What we can do to mitigate the risk? It's we implement user authentication. Then we do data encryption, both at rest and in transit. Then we apply secure coding practices for our Scrum teams and vulnerability patching policy. And after applying all of this, our initial medium risks becomes low, basically. For risk number 4, it's user interface confusion. What we can do with that on the very beginning? We design intuitive UI UX. Then we have clear labeling and we provide user training and color-coded confidence indicator, thus lowering the risk from medium to low. What we can do about our last hazard and loss of connectivity? So we can implement local offline cache. Then, of course, we automatically retry to restore the connection multiple times. And if we're still failing, we show user warning of the offline mode. And initial risk low becomes very low. And after doing all of that, we make risk traceability metrics. Why are we doing it? This is basically required to prove to the auditor that we trace from the very beginning, from the risk identification, we implemented risk control for every identified risks. Then we covered with testing or verification every risk control, and we can demonstrate the result, our test results. And this way we say that our software is safe and can be released on the market. So traceability metrics is very convincing when you need to prove about mitigating every risk, and the way we do it, the way how we cover them by testing, and the way how we can demonstrate test results. And we have timestamp of every, for example, risk identification, what is normally checked by the auditor, that all risk controls, even timestamp proofs, are identified after we identified the risks. All the tests are designed after we identify risk controls, and we are not changing them anymore. It means that in our Jira software or in other issue tracking system you use, you have all items approved. It means you can't change them anymore. And then it's a kind of baseline for us to create test cases and then to pass test cases and records at which point of time we perform these test cases and which results are got. And basically we could export all this information and present for an auditor or for a notified body. So, and basically we do it for both. Then let's see for the risk controls. So if for hazard number 1, we have algorithms shall detect atrial fibrillation within more than 95% sensitivity and more than 90% specificity on a representative data set. So how the test case will look like? So we run the algorithm on a validated data set of, for example, 10,000 annotated ECGs and calculate these both parameters. And if we get these numbers more than 95% and 90% respectively success, so we say that our test is successful. If not, test fails, and then we further decide if we can go on the market with that, or we need to improve the software, or we need to check the process, or what other measures do we need to establish. So another risk control for our presentation purposes, it's the system shall perform real-time plausibility checks on the ECG input before analysis. So what we do and how we can check this? We inject corrupted or incomplete ECG data and verify that the system basically blocks analysis and raises an error. So our task here is to break the system and to cause an error. And if we do it, so basically getting an error means our successful test case. Then hazard number 2, it's data corruption during transfer. And about our risk control, the system shall apply checksums to all incoming ECG files. What we do during a test case, we corrupt files and verify checksum validation failure on login. As soon as we get this error, so test case is successful. Then another control, that system shall retry failed data transfer up to 3 times. So we defined how many times do we retry it. It's about lost connectivity or data transfer issues. And we simulate network interruptions and check and retry the behavior. So let's look at one more due to time restrictions and proceed to the next topic. So for example, user interface confusion. So the UI shall display risk classification results using color-coded indicator and plain language text. So what we do as covering it with a test case, we conduct usability study with 10 clinicians. We defined a number of clinicians and confirm comprehensions. So if all of them understand how to follow the scenario, we say that this case is successful. Depending on the result, we decide if further mitigation is required. Then next, risk mitigation number 8, the software shall provide an online user guide describing an items and outputs. And what we do during the test, we verify user guide content and accessibility from the main screen. So basically, last one, loss of connectivity. We check, for example, the system shall operate in offline mode for up to 2 hours with cached data. So how we test it? We disconnect network and verify continuous operation for 2 hours. So, and if we get a normal work and with some output, so we say test is successful. If not, test fails and we decide about further mitigations. Then the last one, the system shall notify the user when it is in operating mode. So we trigger offline mode and verify this alert. As soon as we get alert, so our test case and user reacts on that, user understands that they are in the offline mode. So it means that we helped user with the information. So our next section of our presentation is cybersecurity risk. This is a very common topic covering basically all industries in the software development, not only the healthcare. What are the most common cybersecurity risks which happen to our cloud-based software? So first of all, it's unauthorized access and data breaches, then third-party component vulnerabilities, insufficient access control within devices or system, malware and ransomware attacks, then lack of cybersecurity in the software development lifecycle, then insecure software updates and patch management, insecure network communication, poor login monitoring and incident response. It can be insecure API or cloud integration, and insufficient post-market surveillance. So I selected the most common we have and we need to deal with, just to show you on an example. And if you are not from healthcare industry, so most of all, you got many of them too in your daily work. So what we do and how we deal with them. So in our organization, again, it's very specific what we do. Here, maybe other companies are dealing different with that. We apply very similar approach as for the risk management, and we define a number of cybersecurity threats and it defines the risks, then identify the scenario, then define risk control measures, and then evaluate and test and see test results and assess if any further mitigation is required. So let's look at the example how it works. First one, unauthorized access and data breach. So this scenario could be compromised clinician account, which exposes patient health records. So this is, we have penalties for that because both according to HIPAA and according to GDPR, we must protect patient data. And yeah, in the risk control measures, I identified what are the common control risks we apply to mitigate this risk. So it's among them are multi-factor authentication, role-based access control. It means that people in the organization with their account have only access to the required information. Yeah, and we restrict them to all other information which is not necessary for their work. And it can be data encryption, and I even suggested encryption protocols as one of the example, and all the measures are listed on the slide. Then second cybersecurity risk, it's insecure update or patch management. What could be the scenario? It's attacker installs malicious firmware through an unverified update. Yeah, so what can be the risk control measures? It's secure boot and it's integrity verification and a few more measures listed on this slide. Then risk number 3, it's third-party component vulnerabilities. So what can be the scenario for that? It's, for example, OpenSSL library with known CVE used in device communications. How we can protect our system from that? We maintain SBOM. We control all the third-party components, and what means the SBOM analysis? We make analysis every component which is used, every third-party component which is used for our software. We have vulnerability disclosure program, and yeah, we check everything very thoroughly before integrating any third-party component into our medical device software. So risk number 4, it's insecure network communication. What could be a possible scenario? It's we use unencrypted DICOM, which contains a lot of personal patient information, or insecure protocol in HTTP, for example, instead of HTTPS. And how we can deal with that? We risk control measures. So we can use TLS 1.2 and higher version. Then authentication, we can use VPN while we are dealing with the software. We can apply firewall rules. Yeah, and basically all of this is reducing our risk for insecure network communications. So there is a couple of more, just to show you as an example. It's weak access control within system. So the scenario could be that share service accounts or default admin credentials. So when we have free access to someone else PC, and we can steal data, we can corrupt data intentionally or unintentionally. How we can deal with that? We use unique user account, and yeah, we are very strict how people access the data through the platform. Then a very important one is pure login and incident detection. So the scenario could be intrusion unnoticed due to lack of audit trail. So we need to have tracking how the system is used. And in case of some incident, we go back to logging, and it helps us to do the analysis, how it happens, to be able to ask our 5 whys and to prevent the system from any future similar errors and failures. So risk number 7, it's malware ransomware attack. It's basically scenario infection through hospital LAN or USB. And how we can deal with that? It's email filtering, network isolation, endpoint protection, and we apply all of that at our organization on a workplace. Then very common one, insecure API and cloud integrations. So we sometimes very quick to get the result, but forget about making our API secure. And the scenario could be overprivileged API key exposures, patient images. How we can deal with that is data encryption in the cloud. And we have a couple of more measures to be in place presented on this slide. And very briefly, I will only go through the scenarios and cybersecurity risk, and you will see on the slide the risk control measures. So it's lack of cybersecurity in general in the software development lifecycle. So what we do by design, when scenario security is not considered until the design freeze. And what is very important basically for healthcare, when we have weak post-market security surveillance, when we don't pay enough attention to the post-market obligations. So we do not monitoring for new threats after the release. And it happens that the system is always have continuous vulnerability. How we can deal with that? We do vulnerability scanning and enhance our post-market surveillance process. So just to conclude about all of that, it's about BA role in healthcare. Basically, it is very important, and we can't replace it with a product owner or with anyone else, because BA is very knowledgeable to transform clinical workflow, regulatory rules, and technical considerations into clear and actionable software requirements. And then we ensure serving like a bridge between the clinical experts, developer, regulators, and other stakeholders. So if we're talking about risk class drives the journey, it's your software risk classification determines the level of scrutiny and documentation. The higher the risk level, the more documentation is required to get this regulatory approval for our medical product on the market. And the more evidences, of course, including clinical evidences, is required. And then if we are talking about quality builds speed. If we have a solid QMS foundation and plus extensive verification, validation, and traceability, just believe me, it does not slow you down. it accelerates your clearance. When it comes to the notified body or regulators, they are very strict about that, and it's better to set up everything up front than to lose your time at the end before the certification. And looking at cybersecurity, it's basically patient safety. When data breaches and system vulnerability make our system in general very weak, and it's not just IT problems. We need to integrate security by design to have our software safe, first of all. And traceability, it's maybe very specific to healthcare. Traceability creates trusts. If you have a strong traceability from the business requirements to stakeholder requirements to the further breaking them down to software requirements, test and verification results, and thus we prove the complying and protection patient. And our end goal after doing all of that, we need to deliver safe and effective software. And just to conclude what is not included in the slide, we in healthcare always fighting with old-fashioned regulatory and our modern technology. So we need to do both in a certain way. We need to promote and benefit from all AI technologies. And at the same time, we need to be regulatory compliance. And this part is new for regulatory, and they are learning it very seriously and introduce basically every month some updates from regulatory issues, how we should control our software where we apply AI technologies. So basically, it's more strict post-market surveillance, and we should monitor how our software behaves after we released it on the market, because over the time, we all know neural network has been trained and it can behave differently. And the more time flies, then we could get quite different results than at the moment of for the software release. So it is regulated, and regulatory body have a very thorough look into that. So thank you for your time, for spending this hour with me. Feel free to connect via LinkedIn. So all my scientific publications, like recording on different podcasts and different webinars, conferences, I normally provide links on my mainly LinkedIn page. And if you are interested to know more, so feel free to ask right now, feel free to connect after via LinkedIn, and let's stay in touch. And if you always have a topic to work on or a challenging topic, feel free to reach out. I am very happy to connect and network. So James, giving back to you, do we have any questions? Let's proceed to our Q&A session.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Iryna. That was a fantastic presentation, and I can definitely see where the regulation fits in. When we were briefly talking before the event, there is a lot of onus on regulation, which I think is important in the healthcare. I particularly liked the case study that you presented on AI and the ECG interpretation. I thought that was really interesting because I'm sure a lot of people here are probably like, oh, how does AI fit into one, working as a BA, but also as a practical real world example. So that was really, really cool to see. Does anyone have any questions? I don't see any in the chat at the moment or in the Q&A, or if anyone would like to come off mute, please feel free to do so. Iryna would be happy to answer any questions.
Can I just say something to add to what I said? So why all these slides, they describe how we do interaction through all stakeholders and all mitigations through software requirements. And basically, this is direct job of business analysts. And this is the core how we do our daily job in healthcare as business analysts.
Hi, Iryna. I don't know if you can hear me. So I've got two questions. So first, I'm going to go back to the basics. So I'm not in the kind of healthcare industry as such, but it's interesting. So for last year, and I think it's something, probably a broad question anyway. The two challenges I can imagine is one is the availability of the kind of medical end users effectively, because I can see they're always kind of, we're going to be, their priority might be, oh, patients come first, and having a workshop and all that kind of challenges. How do you find that, and how do you overcome that? And the second challenge, again, I don't know, it's probably less so. I'm making an assumption here in US, but in Europe, you might have people from various different cultures, backgrounds, languages. So when you're trying to elicit those requirements, how do you overcome that challenge around the nuances in the way that people speak and provide those requirements that you then have to translate into something that makes sense to everyone effectively? So those are my two questions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for the question. Let me start with the second one. So we are international company with offices in more than 20 countries of the world where we do R&D work, and we truly benefit from very multicultural environment and from various backgrounds. So basically, it's not a restriction, it's in contrast help. We have like how we communicate with each other. We have business official language is English, and people from various backgrounds and from various locations contribute really good to our products, which is basically released on all over 120 markets. So how we deal with cultural differences, it can be a good question for that. And multicultural environment, and first of all, we try to benefit. We make training and we educate personnel. We always work with different countries, and over years you get used to that. You get used to some cultural differences of very specific countries, and first of all, you try to benefit from strong sides of every person. It's basically not only culture. So let's try to get best of people and try to network with countries. And just believe me, every culture can bring value to a product. And we all know this, and we all try to benefit of that. I'm happy to have colleagues through all over the world. And sometimes it's fantastic to network collocated or during the distributed workshops, meeting and events. And everyone has unique knowledge and unique experience. And you are a business analyst, need to identify this uniqueness and try to get the most of it. Yeah. And can you please remind me your first questions? I'm so sorry. I just was very interested about second one, because it's very important when you try to work in a multicultural organization. You should be ready that you should deal with different countries and different cultures. And this is all what I do on a daily basis, basically. And it's quite interesting and exciting. So some things at first seem unusual for you, but then you understand the uniqueness of every contributors and try to get the most of that. So this is my approach, how I deal with people, because I'm a people manager to people worldwide. And yeah, this is how I try to communicate with them and collaborate basically with them. And it should be really effective collaboration at the end. Can you please remind your first question?
Thanks, Iryna. Yeah, that made sense. Yeah, because I kind of work from a background, so I'm UK based at the moment, but I've kind of worked with kind of people from Dutch who are quite literal, so they just say what they mean effectively. Whereas in UK, when you're kind of talking to people, it's what they sometimes don't say is what you need to try and draw out, and that can be a challenge on occasion. So yeah, it was interesting how the medical kind of staff across the world how you handle that. The other question was from more of the, again, I don't know the type of end users you work with, but I'm thinking medical staff tend to be quite busy, or for them, the patients will come first. So they will never kind of prioritize you potentially over their patients, and to organize a workshop and one-to-ones could be, I can see it being a huge challenge. So how do you try and overcome that challenge when to get all of these kind of, I don't know, 10 different doctors and surgeons and stuff together in a room when time is so precious? How do you kind of overcome that challenge?
So it's maybe easier than it sounds. We have a group of key opinion leaders who contribute from a medical side to our products and projects. So basically a group of people who kind of like combining their practicing work with some scientific work and contributing to new products. And of course, we have clinical trials. After we develop a new software, it's mandatory, then we do a clinical evaluations. So we try users, or we create user scenarios, and we ask, as I showed in one of the slides, for example, we ask 12 users to go through 10 steps, and we observe how they do this work. So what are their main challenges? What is not clear? And just believe me, after this exercise, you have a lot of new requirements, what needs to be improved. So because how technical people see things, it's not necessary how clinicians will see and accept things. If for tester all clear, it doesn't mean that for a doctor all is clear. And doctor can challenge us a lot, say, okay, interface is not user friendly. I don't so first look at the interface. Is it intuitive enough so you could navigate through the steps and you could understand what you should do? And in some cases, people just don't understand. They are lost. They don't understand without extensive training what they should do. It means usability definitely needs to be improved. So it's one of example how we do it. And we tried on multiple key opinion leaders. They are clinicians first before we go live to market. This is mandatory. It's a part of clinical evaluation process, and it's a part of a quality management system. There is a standards regulating how we do it. We engage them. So we engage people who like contributing, and they're interested in that too, to get some new features on the market. They like make a kind of request, they provide input, they describe the problem, and based on the problem, we implement new features. And then, of course, we want to show them before we go live on market. We want to show and try the features on them and see how usable they are, and to not get a result as on that funny picture. So what user asks and what user get as a result of our actions. And on every intermediate steps, with some misinterpretation, we got completely different to what were asked. So this is the way we do that. But thanks, it's a great question, and it's a great study. We have a great usability engineering team who evaluate human errors and suggest improvements through risks and through new software requirements as mitigations to these usability risks.
Makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for a great question.
No problem. I guess, do you have other kind of BAs who are come from non-medical backgrounds, or they kind of most other BAs in the organization specialize from a medical engineering field?
So what we do both ways. Some people have medical background, but not BI foundation. And second group of people, they have a strong and solid BI knowledge, but no medical background. So we have experience of dealing with both groups. And in my personal opinion, it's easier, but someone can disagree with me. It's easier that a person have a solid BA background and know all the BA techniques and how to do their job. So a kind of giving them medical knowledges, it's, in my opinion, it's easier than the other way around. And But we do both, so it's not like one of preferred way. So the situation we get, we of course deal with it. But if you know all the techniques, all AI tools, all the technologies, and because it's very difficult to find a person on the market who has all skill set and domain knowledge we need. So if I see CBAP certified person, so it tells a lot about solid background. And just to show, like to give more medical background, in my opinion, it's kind of easier.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's it from me.
Okay, I don't see any other questions in the Q&A or in the chat. We have reached the top of the hour, so I think we can leave it there. But thanks again, Iryna, so much for taking the time to speak for IIBA Ireland. It's been an absolute pleasure. Hope to have you again as a speaker in the future. And thanks again for everyone who joins. I hope you found something valuable or insightful from the session, and stay tuned for our next A Day in the Life of a BA. Well,
Thank you so much for having me, James.
No problem
Have a
at all.
great afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.